Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar for drivers. Our topic for today will be log edits. Let's review today's agenda. Today, we are going to review on the Keep Truckin' app how to do log edits, and there are a few points that you can do in here. First, there will be Fleet Manager edit suggestions and how to accept or reject those. And then we will review reassigning driving events. Next, we're going to go over what a driver can actually edit on their log within the app. And that includes editing events, adding a remark, inserting a past duty status. And then finally, we're going to review how drivers can go onto the Keep Truckin' dashboard and how they can add a signature or bulk sign their logs. And then, of course, at the very end, like we always do, we're going to go ahead and end it with a Q&A so we can make sure to get all of your questions answered. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to bring up my Keep Truckin' app here on my phone. So for those of you, just go ahead and open your app. And first, we're going to review how you can accept Fleet Manager log edits. They're just suggestions. So for those of you out there who are owner-operators, this probably won't be something that you'll utilize often, but for those of you who are using an ELD that is owned and that you're operating a vehicle under that company, then you're going to go ahead and probably get these sometimes if your manager is trying to help keep your log up to date. So the first one we're going to review is how to accept or reject a log suggestion edit from your fleet manager. So you can see here's my logs page screen. And at the top, we have two yellow bars and it says log edits. And so it was created by my fleet manager. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the first one. And you can see here the log and the date that she is making the suggestion for. And you can see, make a note that in the top left-hand corner, it says edited log. So this is the log edit suggestion that my manager is suggesting for me to accept. And if you scroll down, you'll see highlighted, listed in the events, the actual highlighted events that are the edited or added events. So that's what I would be adjusting on my log. And if you want to go ahead and just make sure that it's correct or want to compare what this edited log would look like compared to your current log, look in the top right-hand corner and select Current Log. And it's going to switch you over to what your original log said that you had. So you can compare the difference and verify if it's correct or not. So if you would like to not accept this and you think this is incorrect, you simply select the X, the red X on the left, and that will also indicate to your manager that you have rejected this edit suggestion. And I encourage you to contact your fleet manager and let them know why you have rejected this, or maybe make a note in a log what that actually is or what you would like to change it to. So great to have communication between the fleet manager and driver. And then if you do accept this, all you have to do is click the green check mark, and that will become your new that will be put on your logs. And here you can say, are you sure you want to accept this log edit? And you can say yes or no. Just, you know, I know it's really hard. Sometimes our fingers don't really click on the right thing. So we're just, again, confirming that this is what you want to make sure that we're not doing anything that would be a mistake. So I went ahead and clicked yes. And now if we go to May 7th, May 9th. you can now see that I have this new time of the sleeper berth and the driving time on my log. Okay. So that was how we would accept or reject log edit suggestions made by a fleet manager. Now we're going to review reassigning drive time. So I have another log edit on my at the top of my log screen, and I'm going to go ahead and click into that. And here you can see that my fleet manager, has assigned this ELD or AOBRD, depending on what mode you're in, recorded driving event to my log, and it's for 18 minutes and 26 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead, and for this one, I'm going to accept it because at that time, maybe I forgot to connect to the ELD via my Keep Tracking app. So now I'm gonna go ahead and have my log updated. So again, go ahead and say yes. And now I have that drive time on my log for that day as well. Okay, so that's the first part that we were going to review, log edit suggestions from Fleet Manager. Now, just for those of you who just joined us, we went over those two scenarios, and now we're going to go into driver edits. And of course, it's editing events, and then adding a remark, and inserting a past duty status. Okay, so first, let's go into editing an event. So I'm going to go ahead and go into this log for the day, and I'm going to edit a past duty event. So let's say for this one, I'm looking at my past duty events, and those are the 3 events listed underneath the graph. Those are, when I say events, that's what I'm referring to. Each line is its own event. I'm going to go ahead and select which one I want to edit. So you can click on the events and you can edit any or either of them. I'm going to go ahead and click on my sleeper berth, and I'm going to click edit. And so it selects that event and that time period. So you can see it's starting at midnight, going to 5:04 a.m. in the morning. So I can't adjust the start time here because that's the beginning of this day's log, but I can edit the time. You can see here how it doesn't fade out the end time. So I am able to adjust that if I would like to something else. And then I can go underneath and I can go ahead and select the duty status that I want to change it to. So let's say that I was off duty and I would like to put in my location. I'm gonna go ahead and click. I just clicked on that little compass right there, that navigation icon, and it went ahead and updated my location for me. And then I'm gonna go ahead and put, off duty. And select done. And then so once you've gone ahead and edited that event into what you want it to be, you can just simply click save in the top right-hand corner. And now you can see that the event from midnight to 5 a.m. has now switched to off duty. So that's how you edit an actual event that's already on your log. The next thing we're going to review is how to add a remark. So adding a remark is similar to adding a note in an event, but what it does is it's going to put an indicator on your actual graph and show that there's a remark that's been added here with whatever commentary it is that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and show you. Just click the plus icon at the bottom right-hand corner, and you're going to see add a remark right there. I'm going to go ahead and select it, and it's going to give me this gray flag, and I can either touch the gray flag with my finger, and I can move it anywhere that I want, Or I can go ahead and select here at the time and go ahead and click on the time, and I can move the time to exactly where I want it to be. So let's go ahead and just pick a time, click done. Go ahead and update my location. These are just best practices. Always add your location and always add a note. Maybe I want to say fuel stop. All right, that's my note for that point in time. Click save. Okay, so that is how you add a remark. If there's anything that you ever want to add or make sure that your fleet manager knows or you want to keep for your records, that would be a great way to just add something or add your annotation. Okay, and then lastly, what we're going to do here is I'm going to show you how to insert a duty or insert a duty status or insert a new event. So you can see here that I have a 30-minute break required. And so I'm going to go ahead and add a 30-minute break so that they can know that I can be compliant. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my plus. I'm going to click on the plus icon again. And I'm going to click on this insert past duty status. So if I wanted to add a 30-minute break, all I have to do is I'm going to go ahead and use the time. And I'm going to put in here, let's say I started at 12:10 and ended at 12:40. So just scroll through. It's pretty easy. All right. So there is my time for my 30 minutes. And then I'm going to go ahead and select off duty. I'll put in here my location and then go ahead and put my note that this is a 30-minute break. And you can see there as I started to type it, it went ahead and populated an answer that they thought would be helpful for me. So that is how you insert a past duty status. Now, of course, last but not least, make sure that you always go ahead and sign your log. And then if you see any form and manner errors, make sure that you go in and you just select all the items necessary so that your log is beautiful without any red exclamation marks. So if you have any questions on anything that we have gone through, please put your comments in the top right-hand corner, and we'll try to get to as many questions that we can at the end. Okay. So now we're moving on from the Keep Truckin' app to the Keep Truckin' dashboard. So for those of you out there who didn't know this, you can go on to the Keep Truckin' dashboard and sign in to your driver account. So I just went on keeptruckin.com and I used my same login credentials that I use for my Keep Truckin' app. And here you can see I have my overview of my hours of service and my last location history. And then I can go into my logs and I can view all of my logs for the past, for as long as I've had a Keep Truckin' account. Oops. So you can just go ahead and scroll through and you can see here I've been really bad and haven't signed any of my logs. I know a lot of you probably are as guilty as I am out there. And all you have to do, or there's two ways you can do it. You can go ahead and click on today's log that you want to go and add the signature. And you can go ahead and scroll down to the very bottom. And right here it says add signature. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. You can either clear it and write a new one, or you can click save for the one that you had previously. And now my log is signed. But let's go ahead and go back here. Let's say that would be an example if you just needed to sign one, but as you can see, I need to sign all of them. And the best way to do this is to bulk sign. And the way you bulk sign is click on the top box at the top of the header next to the date, and that is going to highlight all 50 logs that are in this view. And normally, if you wanted, you can download or send these, but right now I just need to get these signed and confirm that they're all correct. So I'm going to hit sign, make sure and save. And now all 50 of these will have a signature. So it's really great for those of you out there who have maybe not done this in the past. And if you wanted to keep doing it, you can by just simply going through your entire view. See, it'll tell you right now I have 75 logs selected and we can only do 50 of them at one time. So go ahead and just select in here by date which logs you want to sign, and it'll populate those for you. Those ones are already signed. Let me do another one. Let's try May. Oh, and those ones are all signed. So I've gone ahead and went through, and now I can have all compliant logs. And that's all we have for you guys today. So we're going to go ahead and move to the Q&A. So our first question is...
Excellent. So I'll jump in here, Chelsea, and feel free. I'll definitely throw you a few questions and work off your knowledge. But so I saw a lot of questions in here as people watched the demonstration and saw, oh my gosh, are we able to change and edit driving events after the fact and change them to break time or off-duty time? And I think one of you came up with the right answer here. So working off of Chelsea's log here on our demo, this was manually added drive time. So this was not pulled directly from a vehicle, was not pulled from the ECM, was not pulled from an ELD. So because of that, it works just kind of like your timesheet. So because she manually went in, input that time herself, she's able to make that change and edit that time. But in other circumstances, so if you are connecting to an ELD, you guys are absolutely right. You cannot change a driving event, a recorded driving event, no matter if you're operating under AOBRD compliance mode or ELD compliance mode. In either setting, either case, you cannot change a recorded driving event to appear as a non-driving event, so off-duty or break time. And there are some kind of differences between running AOBRD and ELD, but in either case, you cannot make a driving event appear as though it was the vehicle was not in motion.
Thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. You know, guys, I do apologize if that brought any confusion to you. We're a little limited here in the office. We don't drive trucks on a daily basis. So I was doing a manually driven event there where I just added it for the purposes of a demo. Thank you for catching that. I think you, but I will go ahead and show you here really quickly. So since I accepted an ELD driving event when I accepted that reassigning drive time from the fleet manager. So let's go ahead really quick and show what it would look like. So here I have this ELD red driving event. See how it has the little ELD symbol on top of the driving event, the two little green equal sign? This is going to be one where I can show you where if I was to click edit, it's not going to give me anything, anything to do because I'm not allowed to change this driving time to anything, right? The only things I can do here with this actual ELD red driving event is add a note. So I could go ahead and put here, again, fuel stop or something like that. It wouldn't, or, getting fuel or something of that nature. When you actually have an ELD driving event, you cannot do anything to that green line. And I know it's kind of small, but it's not blue, it's actually green. And when you have that green line, you can't do anything. I was simply changing the, inserting that duty status for the purposes of showing you how to update, putting in a 30-minute break. And then also, just for all of your guys' knowledge, when you are using the ELD and you go into drive mode, it has to, once it's recorded as a driving event, there's nothing you can do. It will remain a driving event. And if you maybe were accidentally meant to put it in personal conveyance, or if you wanted to do it as a yard move, the only thing that I could do in that instance is go ahead and click on it, click edit, and then in here, instead of putting like fuel stop, I could put, personal conveyance. And then click save so that they know that that 18 hours and 26 minutes was supposed to be a personal conveyance move. And of course, I didn't write it in there, but what you would want to do is put what the actual driving event was for to indicate that it was a personal conveyance event. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Please, if you have any follow-up questions on that, please send them in.
Yeah, I think that was a great clarification. Thanks so much, Chelsea. So there are slight differences, as Chelsea went over, dependent on whether or not your fleet is still allowed to run AOBRD compliance mode, or just if by the ruling you should be running ELD compliance mode. One of the main differences, and we're not going to get into it too much, one of the main differences between those two compliance mode settings is that under AOBRD, you are allowed to reclassify a driving event after the fact. So for those cases, when you have drivers who are doing personal conveyance or yard moves and forget to change their duty status to the special duty status, the special permission, if they forget to change it beforehand, under AOBRD mode, the fleet manager or fleet administrator can go back in and reclassify that driving event to reflect what it was, so a yard move or personal conveyance. Under ELD compliance mode settings, you cannot reclassify ELD recorded driving events. So that drive time will still show up on your log in that third line, the drive line. Chelsea just showed us the best practice, which is recommended by the FMCSA, which is to annotate the log to reflect that mistake and say, this should have been yard move, this should have been personal conveyance, just forgot to change my duty status. So you can annotate it. It will still show up in your third line of drive time, so you will still see those hours of service violations. But the best to do is just annotate and be clear about what happened there.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, Jocelyn. And this, you know what, guys, this is something that a lot of drivers out on the road are still understanding. So we really encourage you to be able to understand this and also clearly indicate this to, when you're being pulled over for roadside inspections, that you know which mode you're operating in, whether it be AOBRD mode or ELD. But pretty much a rule of thumb would be, if you're in ELD mode, the way it's recorded is the way it needs to stay, and you can annotate. And then if you are in AOBRD mode, you do have leeway to reclassify driving events. That's pretty much the rule of thumb, but of course there are little tweaks here and there for different things.
Yeah. Another great question here. So who can reclassify drive time? So we mentioned in AOBRD compliance mode that you can do that after the fact, reclassification of a driving event to either yard move or personal conveyance. So who has that ability? Does that sit with the driver, or is that just for fleet managers and fleet admins? Chelsea.
That is both. So you have that capability within your own app, and the fleet manager has that capability as well. Again, if you're in AOBRD mode. If you are in ELD mode, you will not have the option to reclassify as a driver. And then, but you do have the option to, so getting into it, like basically in the Code of Regulations, it says that a driver cannot reclassify a special driving status to, all these different
I know,
modes.
asking the tough questions here, guys.
Yeah,
Love it.
thank you.
Keep them coming.
Okay, so if in ELD mode, if you have a driving event that is recorded as a driving event, you cannot change it.
No.
To a special driving status. It clearly states that. However,
for our AOBRD fleets and drivers, you are able to reclassify after the fact. And you were saying, so I know fleet managers and administrators can do that through their online dashboard, through the online server, and for drivers as well, they can do that within the app. Is that right?
Correct.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so another great question here. When should drivers add drive time manually? So we saw an example of this here on Chelsea's app of manually added drive time that was not recorded by an ELD, was not pulled directly from the vehicle, was just manually entered by hand.
Great question.
And I know some of you, it sounds like, have talked to our support reps, have kind of heard the warning we give against allowing and giving drivers permission to operate manually. So when would be a good case of when we would allow drivers to log manually?
Yeah, that's a great question. So manual drive time is a driving status or privilege that we have available for those drivers who experience anything regarding an ELD malfunction. And of course, an ELD malfunction is something that could be anything, right? Like you drop, that could be your ELD device, or it could be your phone. So if you are, incapable, like you drop your phone in, the toilet at a truck stop, you will no longer be able to operate using the ELD. The ELD will still be recording your drive time, but at that point, well, actually, that's not the best point, because then you wouldn't be able to use manual drive because the phone would be in.
Right.
Let's figure out another ELD. It would be like, let's say something happened to your cable, right? And the cable isn't working, so you're waiting for a new cable to be shipped to you. That's a perfect example. At that point, you still have access to your logs on your Keep Truckin' app. So you would be enabled for manual drive time, and you would just write, cable, broken cable, ordered new one, right? Contacted ELD provider and ordered new one. And then what I would do is I would mark that on your log by adding a remark like we showed you. I would have some kind of like written confirmation of when you contacted us to report the ELD malfunction, and then note that you've enabled yourself for manual drive time up until you have that new cable. And then once you get that new cable, you would remove the manual drive privilege off of your Keep Truckin' app, and then continue to use the ELD to record your drive time.
Right. So, and the only reason that we really kind of caution against enabling drivers for manual logging is if they're logging manually, they are not necessarily logging their time through the ELD as they should be if they fall under the ELD mandate. It can also interfere. There was a mention here of unidentified driving events, and I think Chelsea showed you how to claim those and add those to your log later. The issue that can come up, and this is why we kind of caution against allowing drivers to use manual drive time, is let's say, on their log for May 7th, they have manually recorded a driving event from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. They say, yep, I was on the road, I was driving. They've logged it manually onto their log. If you later try and assign that unidentified driving event that the ELD had recorded and try and place it onto that log correctly, as it should be, that space is already occupied on the log. So it will be full. You can't double count something. You can't have it show up twice. So it just creates that extra step that in order to correctly put that unidentified driving event onto the driver's log, you'll need to go ahead and go in, remove the manually logged drive time, and then you can add the unidentified driving event to that driver's log. So it can just kind of create an extra step, not the smoothest process. Manual driving can be a great feature if you have exempt drivers or drivers who don't fall within the ELD mandate and still need to keep track of their driving hours. That would be a great case for manual drive time and manual logging.
It's just like using the free app, right? When you just download it, it gives you the manual drive if you weren't required to use an ELD. And just so you guys know, I want to reference really quick what Jocelyn was saying here. So let's go ahead and go back into the app really quick. I want to go ahead and refer to what she was talking about here with a manual driving event. Okay, so here I have this manual driving event, right? And let's say I indicated that I was using a manual drive time while I was having an ELD malfunction. Let's say you wanted to actually put that, that ELD red driving event in place of this manual driving event once I got my ELD back up and running, right? Is that what you were referring to? Like if they have a manual driving event and then they wanted to actually reassign the ELD driving event to them?
Correct, exactly.
So what I would simply do is go here, and we know this is a manual driving event because there is no ELD symbol on there. I click edit. I would select off duty. And so now, oops, I have to enter a location. Thank you for reminding me, handy dandy Keep Truckin' app. And click save. And now I have that availability for that driving event to be put on my log because now I'm off duty and I'll be able to assign that to myself. Okay, and then really quick here, since we're on the topic of, driving events, manual versus ELD or AOB or D, what I'm going to go ahead and do is show you, you click on those top 3 bars at the top left-hand corner of your app, it's going to give you the menu on the left-hand side. And we're just going to go ahead and go into DOT inspection mode really quick. And I want to show you guys what it's going to look like to an officer. So here's my log, and I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. Oh, I have to actually go to a day that I have some events. And here, I think it's the 9th. Okay, so here we have the driving, right? It says, if we all look at line 2, it says driving, and then it says driver. And then see how it also says driver underneath all the other duty statuses that the driver has created? That means that the driver has put this in. This has been recorded and by the actual user of the app. But if I go ahead and go to May 8th, where did I have that driving event? Oh, yep, okay, here we go, sorry. If I go to May 8th and I go to the driving event that I accepted from the ELD, you can see right here that for the line 2, for that ELD red driving event, it says ELD. It doesn't say driver. So they're going to know if this is an ELD recorded event or if this is something that's been indicated by a driver. So that's something really important for you guys to know out there when you're in your roadside inspections.
Awesome. Great info. So just to kind of summarize there, you can manually add drive time to your logs, but it is not the same as connecting to the ELD and electronically recording that drive time. There can be cases where it makes sense if you have drivers that one day of the week they're driving a vehicle without an ELD, the next day of the week they are driving an ELD to be logging electronically. So it's really up to you to make that best decision of what's going to be the best fit for your drivers in that situation. But good question.
Right. And for those of you out there that maybe have, like how she said, if you have an ELD exempt vehicle, like a 1998 Freightliner, by all means, you'll probably want to have manual drive enabled all the time so that you can go ahead if you're going back and forth between the vehicles, but just make sure that you're, that you're using it the proper way, or operating, the app and the ELD in the proper manner.
Yeah. Okay, I really like this question here. So we're talking a lot about unidentified driving events, adding them to logs, making these log edits. And there's a question here about, okay, so I'm adding drive time to the log. Can I add it as personal conveyance or as a yard move? Chelsea, what do you think?
That's a great question. So I'm assuming when you're saying adding drive time, you're talking about an actual recorded ELD read event?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so since you were not logged into the app to mark prior to the driving event being recorded as ELD or as as a special driving status, personal conveyance, or yard move, it was actually recorded as drive time. So referring back to what we were saying earlier, if an ELD read event or is recorded as driving, it will have to remain driving, even when you reassign it or accept it onto your logs. It is going to be marked as driving, and then of course follow as the FMCSA has recommended, and just put in the annotations, recorded as an unidentified driving event and being assigned to me, but was, personal conveyance, and then make sure you indicate why it was a personal conveyance move. So that would be how you would handle that scenario.
Right. So quick and fast summary on that. If you add previously ELD recorded unidentified driving event to a driver's log, it will automatically show up as drive time. If you're running AOBRD compliance mode setting, you can then do that extra step to reclassify as personal conveyance or yard move, special duty status. If you are running ELD compliance mode settings, you will not be able to do that after the fact and will need to annotate.
Perfect.
Great. Seeing a lot of questions on here, which is great, about, so these webinars, we do them live pretty much every Friday morning. But how can, if someone's not able to attend live, how can they still get the information and view this at a later time?
Great question. So we have webinars every Friday, and then what we do is we alternate between the webinars, between topics for fleet managers and topics for drivers. So, and a majority out there of you out there are owner operators. So you actually probably get both of them, which is great. And what we do is once they're recorded, they're automatically posted on our YouTube channel. So if you go to if you just type in Keep Truckin' and find our account, you'll see all of our webinars are available.
All through the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and feel free to share them with your drivers, with other drivers or other peers as well. For those of you who have been with us for a long time, the reason we keep doing this and keep coming back, and how we know what you guys need help out there with, is just these questions and more topics. So this really is something that we are doing for you guys, because we know that there's a lot of information out there, and we want to make sure that you guys feel confident out there on the road. We know this is like a new era, and so we want to make sure that you guys have as much as possible. So thank you for commenting on that.
Yeah. We're going to keep going back to this, the distinctions and differences between running different compliance mode settings between AOBRD, onboard recording device, and the ELDs. So another question here was, if one of those ELD recorded unidentified driving events was, applied to the wrong driver by mistake, that the driver accepted it, approved it, added it to his log, will I be able to change that, edit that, and get it on the right driver's log? Again, this is going to depend on your compliance mode. So under AOBRD compliance mode settings, you are able to make that change and get it on the right driver's log. Under ELD compliance mode settings, you are only able to assign an unidentified driving event to a driver or a co-driver on that log for that vehicle. So if you have a driver make that mistake and, unknowingly accept, approve, claim drive time that was not his, if you're running AOBRD, you can fix that up. If you're running ELD, I hope that it was his co-driver that it was meant for, because that's going to be the only person that you can reassign that drive time to. So that's why Chelsea showed us that built into the app, it'll prompt the driver and really verify and make sure, is this what you're intending to do? Are you really trying to claim this driving event? Because we want to be sure that mistakes like this don't happen.
Right. And then while we're on the topic of this, I want to make sure that you all know how to verify what mode you're in. So let's go ahead. I went to the top where the 3 lines are for my menu. I clicked on DOT inspection mode. And if you guys just scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see what compliance mode you're in. So I encourage you all to do that right now. Take out your phone, look at what you have so that there's no confusion. And if you think that you should be operating in a different mode or you thought you were, this is something that you'll want to verify with your fleet manager or call us and we can help you if you have any questions on our support line.
Another question we had here was, can fleet managers or fleet administrators sign logs for their drivers? No. As much as you might want to, as much as you see all those little red exclamation points and alerts about missing signatures, the whole reason for the signature is that the driver themselves is in control and responsible for their log. And they need to authenticate and verify that everything on that log is true and accurate to the best of their knowledge. For that reason, we require the driver signature. And that's not something that someone else can do for you, unfortunately.
We feel your pain, though.
Wish we could. Another question here was, will a fleet or company have access to past logs after I leave that fleet or company? Yes. So every fleet or company is required to maintain at least 6 months of past logs for DOT auditing purposes in order to stay compliant. And for that reason, even if you decide to leave a carrier, leave a company, leave a fleet, your past logs will remain with that fleet for at least 6 months.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So, but once you leave that fleet, we can deactivate your account, which means nothing will be created from that point forward. But they still have access to those logs for their records.
Right. And that is a perfect segue. There was another question in here about, what do I do with these driver profiles if they no longer drive for me, if they no longer work here? So that would be a case for deactivating a driver profile, which you can do from your online Keep Truckin' dashboard. In the admin panel, that's where you have access to all of your driver profiles, and you'll be able to make that change. I believe it's just in the action column. You would go options and choose to deactivate that driver.
If you guys if you ever have a question like that, what you can do is, let me see here. So I'm on my driver profile, but if you ever have a question, I just clicked on this little icon up here that says help, and then it'll take you to our Keep Trucking Learning Center, and you could just go in here and put deactivate, and it will give you, any articles pertaining to removing drivers from your company. So let's just go ahead and walk through this together. So for those out there who are asking about this, if you're a fleet administrator, then that you know who you are out there, and you have this admin tab at the top right-hand corner. You can go into your driver settings, click on the driver menu, find the driver that you want to edit their status, click on options under their name, and then you'll see at the bottom to deactivate. And it says right here, the deactivated driver will no longer be able to access their Keep Truckin' account, but you will still be able to view their past logs, documents, and loads. So for those drivers out there, if you were to leave a company that was using the Keep Trucking system for ELD or AOBRD, and you were to maybe get your own Keep Trucking ELD, you would just create a new username and then start your logs from that point on too.
Okay. So I see we've got a good amount of questions here about the compliance mode settings, about AOBRD and ELD. So one question, which I think it was great and probably pretty helpful and informative, that we showed people where they can look on that driver app to figure out exactly what setting they're currently running under.
Mm-hmm.
Good to know when you're going through those roadside inspections, you want to know the rules you're playing by, right? So there's a question here. Who decides my compliance mode settings? Who decides what settings I'm running under?
Whoever purchased the ELD system.
Right. So if you're driving with a fleet, if you answer to a fleet manager or fleet administrator, they would be the one to contact to figure out, why exactly those are the compliance mode settings that apply to that particular fleet. There have been lots of rulings by the FMCSA about different extensions and exemptions and who plays by what set of rules. So we're not going to dive in too deep on that without Travis, our head of regulatory affairs here. But so if you are a fleet manager or fleet administrator, you are able to decide which of those compliance mode settings is right for your fleet, which you should fall under. And there was a second question here about how to switch those settings. So, if you're operating under the wrong one or one that you don't want to be operating under, it is your call again to be informed, to know which compliance mode setting applies to you and that you should be operating under.
I would suggest just to call our support line.
Yeah.
Because we need to look, and we can, because every case, we need to specifically see when you ordered your ELDs, right? When you received your ELDs. All of you should know that in order to have an AOBRD and use it up until December of 2019, you needed to purchase it and install it in your vehicle prior to December 18th of 2017.
Yes.
So anyone who purchased one after that, it clearly states in the ELD mandate that anything after that that you purchase should be an ELD. Now, of course, there's another caveat that if you purchase an AOBRD prior to December 18th for your fleet, and the FMCSA just came out with an announcement on this, and you wanted to add more AOBRDs for that fleet, you are allowed to do so.
Yes.
So that's why we really want to answer all these questions, but it does go.
There's more to it.
This will go into another topic. We do have, and I know I totally I love that you guys are asking questions. If you go after this webinar into our Keep Truckin' page, where you see all of our webinars, you will find multiple webinars that surround these topics of, if you want to get really deep dive into what is and what isn't within your realm, that would be I really, really, really highly suggest it.
Yep.
But let's go ahead and keep diving in here.
Yeah. So there was a question here about, let's say if I leave a fleet, will I be able to get a new fleet manager for my ELD? Yes, with some caveats. So yes, with the right approvals. So we understand that as owner operators, you might drive for one fleet for a time, situation changes and you want to stop, join another fleet, join another company. These kind of things happen, and our system does allow that kind of flexibility. The caveats I mentioned are just that this needs to be done with all of the proper approvals. So because we would be moving an ELD subscription from one company to another, all companies need to be informed and understand the process.
Yeah, this is really, it really depends on your situation. Is your ELD purchased through the company that you're working for, or is this an ELD that is, and when we say ELD, we mean just device, by the way. So whether you have an AOBRD or an ELD, it's important to know if it's owned by the company or if this is your own, because if you're an owner operator and you have your own device and you're paying for it and it's under your name, you're the fleet admin, you're the fleet manager, and you're the driver. If you work for a carrier and you're just hired a hired driver, then you are just the driver, right? And then they have all the permissions and all the access to all those other views. So it really depends here, I think, which one you're referring to. So what was the question again?
If I leave a fleet, will I be able to get a new fleet manager for my ELD?
Okay, so if I leave so again, did he say company? Oh, company purchase, perfect. Thank you for clarifying. So if it's company purchased, and you would have to contact your company and your manager and ask them, because you're saying that you paid for the year, it sounds like. Either they would have to you have to work that out with them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to give you that ELD, or if they want to, or if they're going to keep it. Ideally, you would just leave and they would give you, you would work out whatever you needed to work out. But it stays with the fleet, essentially.
Yeah, this is the caveat of, getting all parties on the same page. If the fleet purchased it and you're joining a new company or new fleet, then likely they would need to purchase an ELD for you, for this new driver. Unless, you get special permission, then you take that ELD to the next fleet. So it depends on the different fleets' decisions.
Yeah. Normally the ELDs remain with the account that they
were purchased by. Yeah. Going to take it back to kind of the beginning of our Q&A session here. We had a question. Is it possible to reassign multiple unidentified driving events at once in the case of mechanic moves? Because these happen all the time. So I wanted to bring up, this is a feature that we're working on. We're going to offer in the future. For now, though, the best option, and this was an update, a frequently asked question for the FMCSA, updated this just about a month ago, April 3rd. What must a motor carrier do with unassigned driving records from an electronic logging device, an ELD? And they state that it can either be annotated or assigned to the appropriate driver. So one or the other. The direct language is they must either explain why the time is unassigned or assign the time to the appropriate driver. So that being said, you can, and yep, Chelsea's bringing us to that webpage. Perfect. Yes. What must a motor carrier do with unassigned driving records?
Yeah. So sorry, I was just typing that in as she was reading it off her laptop. So if you guys have any questions regarding that, you can just go onto the FMCSA website and it's right there for you.
Yeah. So the only reason I bring that up is you have some options. So you can either one by one go through each of those mechanic moves and assign them to a mechanic account, a driver profile for your mechanic or your shop moves, or you can annotate, and that might be the faster option in this case, that for those mechanic moves to annotate and explain why you're going to leave it unassigned and not tied to a driver profile. Great. Let's see, is there anything else on here? We've covered most of these, and I don't know, we're almost hitting the hour mark, so thank you for those of you who have stayed with us. I hope we've gotten to most of your questions and you leave feeling like you take something away from this session. We had an ask for Spanish resources. I do just want to point out that we have Spanish-speaking support representatives. Mm-hmm. There's no special number to memorize. It would just be calling the regular support line, and this would be for Spanish-speaking drivers, Spanish-speaking fleet managers, all of the above. And once you call that number, you just ask for a Spanish-speaking representative.
So for those of you out there who are asking, do I have access to these videos? I just went ahead and went on our home channel for Keep Trucking, just so you guys all know it's here. And you have all the videos here at your fingertips. So if you just go ahead and click on videos and scroll through them, we do have a Spanish-speaking webinar on here. Mm-hmm. For you guys to just kind of get an intro.
Yeah, it's very in-depth. It goes over everything. So from the driver side as well as the fleet manager side. It's a very detailed video.
Yeah, let me go ahead and see if I can find it.
Yeah.
For you guys.
That would be a good resource to share with any Spanish-speaking drivers.
Here it is. All right, so I just went ahead and typed in Spanish, and it says an inside look at the Keep Truckin' ELD. It's 30 minutes long, and like Jocelyn said, it's pretty awesome. If there's something specific that you would like to be reviewed in Spanish that wasn't covered in this webinar, send us an email. Let us know. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, we can make that our next webinar if you guys are interested.
Well, not our next webinar.
No.
Those are already scheduled.
Yeah. It's coming up.
But we could put it in the pipeline.
Yes. So getting down to our last few questions here. What if driving by a mechanic was assigned to a driver because his device was left connected to the truck? This is the reason that we really advise drivers that when they're done for the day, when you're done with your shift, log out, because things like this can happen. Trucks need to be moved to a different parking space, or the mechanic needs to move it around. And if the driver is still connected, it will be applied to his log. And again, this is something that it's going to depend if you're in AOBRD compliance mode or ELD compliance mode. As we mentioned, AOBRD, you can assign a driving event from one driver to another. ELD compliance mode, it has to either be the driver himself or a co-driver specified on that log. So I highly doubt that the mechanic was specified as a co-driver. So that would be a case for annotation if you're running ELD compliance mode. Perfect. That is just about all we have for today.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on today's webinar for editing logs. I hope that answered all your questions and gave you some really good insight on how to manage your logs out on the road. And again, if you do come across anything, please make sure to contact us. We have 24/7 support. So you can either email us at or go to support.keeptruckin.com, and that was that learning center that I was referring to, or you can call us or email us. And also, for those of you out there, you can actually go onto your app, and we do have instant messenger. So go ahead and go onto your phone, click contact, and you can just start typing it in right there. So thank you so much. I hope that helped. And you all have a great one out there. Keep on trucking.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Bye.